Today we're thrilled to have actress sensation Jade Pettyjohn here with us today. You know her from School of Rock. She also recently completed a movie called Destroyer with Nicole Kidman, and also another movie with Kristen Stewart and one of my favorites, Vince Vaughn. Absolutely love him. Jade, thank you for joining us. I'm super excited.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
This is awesome. So, Jade, can you talk a little bit about your background and when you first got interested in acting?
Yeah, absolutely. So I started acting when I was 7 years old, but I had been asking since I was about 4 years old. I had just kind of been raised in an atmosphere of artists. You know, my dad played music, my mom's a photographer and a painter, and my great-grandmother was dancing on Broadway, and my aunt's a dancer, and so it was just kind of in my blood, I guess. And I think that I was raised in an atmosphere to kind of discover who you are through art. And so once I realized that actors were the people that got to play make-believe for a living, I was like, that's amazing, you've got to figure out how to do that. And so I kind of figured it out, and I started asking my parents from when I was about 4, and then they let me do it when I was 7, and then I've been doing it pretty consistently ever since, so that's good.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah.
Just off the bat, why do you think it's important to use your imagination on a daily basis?
It's such a cheesy answer, but it makes life more interesting, you know? I can't imagine living a life where everything is kind of straight and not, you know, going against the lines and figuring out different ideas. And I think imagination is so important in any field that you're in, you know? It just makes life more interesting and more pleasurable, I think.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
And also, do you feel like you could play like infinite characters and take on infinite different identities?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I love about acting. It's you're figuring out how another person lives. You know, I mean, it's just like, it's what gives me empathy with other people, and that's what's exciting to me, is that I get to play someone who is completely different from me and try and capture that individual truthfully, you know, and then figure out how someone else lives, and you get to kind of imagine how another person lives their life. I think that's really interesting, yeah.
So you told us you had a little bit of shyness going on as a young actress. How did that block you, and then how did you deal with that?
Yeah, so that's the reason why I started when I was 7 and not 4. Because when I was younger, I was just so scared of talking to people, and I just wouldn't talk to people. I was totally okay going on stage and doing stuff like that, but when it had to do with actually communicating with an individual, I was not into it if I didn't know them. And my parents thought that they would be kind of throwing me out to the sharks if they put me into acting, right? And so they, you know, were telling me like, okay, let's work on your reading, let's just do other things and stuff like that. And then I sat them down one night and was like, okay guys, listen, I'm behind schedule, like I need to do this. This is what I want to do, and I kind of like laid out what I want to do in my life specifically when I was about 6 or 7. And so I had done that, and then they were like, okay, well, here's the thing, you're a little bit shy, and we want to work on that because of A, B, and C, you know, the obvious reasons. And I was like, oh, that's why it's not working, you know? And so it was obviously something that I had. It was very real to be shy and stuff, but I was like, okay, this is something that's so much more important to me. So what I did was I would just like order my parents drinks at Starbucks, or, you know, order the meals at restaurants and stuff like that. It was super simple, but just like reaching out, talking to people that I didn't know, and then at parties, just like going up and talking to someone, and then just kind of figuring that out. And then I kind of did a little presentation for my parents after like the first week, and I was like, look, I can do it, see? And then they were like, okay, cool, she's really into this. You have to be willing to communicate to people, because that's what art is essentially, you know?
Hollywood looks like it's the red carpets and glamour, but then there's a lot of hard work that goes into it. Can you talk a little bit about that? Like, give some stories. Like,
okay. Totally. I can totally understand how people can kind of see Hollywood as this glamorous, kind of glossed over thing, because they don't see what's happening behind the curtain. Even with like red carpets and photo shoots and all of that stuff, it's really fun, and it's cool stuff, but it's also work, you know, and it's definitely not as glamorous as people think that is either, you know, and that's all an additive. It's like, it's very fun and it's cool to, you know, get dressed up and all of that, but when it comes down to it, what we do is we tell stories.
That's right.
You know, and that's what I've fallen in love with, you know, and like finding those little moments, and it's hard work, but it's beautiful. It's something that I've fallen in love with, and I think that when you can fall in love with the work and overcoming barriers and going through something that's hard and difficult, and then getting at the end and you're like, guys, we made it, we did it, you know, look what we just made. That's why we do what we do, you know?
It's the journey.
Yeah, it's totally the journey.
Yeah.
Tell us about like any other barriers that you've overcome as an actress or had to deal with during productions.
So many. Yeah, I mean, that's the the love of it is. It's just very hard.
You had an incredible experience working alongside Nicole Kidman as well.
Yeah, that was another one too. There was so much dialogue and things that were being said, but then everything else, there was just everything that wasn't being said. So it felt like there was two scenes occurring at the same time because, and then finding that chemistry with Nicole when we've only known each other for a few days, you know, and like figuring out this very complicated relationship between a mother and a daughter. It was just really interesting to find that, and it was very difficult, you know, doing that scene because it was late and everyone was getting tired, and they had some crazy scenes done in the beginning of the day, and we just kind of went through it, and you know, she's the most vulnerable and I'm super vulnerable, and it was just figuring out the rage and the blocks of communication, because people aren't always saying what they mean, and it was just super interesting to find that dynamic, and by the end of it, I feel like Karin, who's the director, Karin Kusama, who's one of my favorite directors of all time, so I was totally geeking out when I worked with her, and Nicole and we kind of just like found something at the end, and I feel like we were all like, there we go, like we represented that and we went through it, and that was like, all of us were like, oh, okay, we did it, like we got through it, but it was just a very beautifully written scene, and we just wanted to do it justice and then find everything else that was happening or that was there in the scene, you know, and represent that.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Working with Nicole Kidman in Destroyer, were you intimidated? I mean, she's literally one of the biggest actresses in Hollywood.
No, she's amazing, and I've looked up to her for such a long time. Such a long time. I love what she does, and I think she's so truthful.
Were you like pinching yourself, like?
Yeah, I mean, when I found out I booked it, I was like, this is happening. This is great. This is really crazy. But I think I had to figure out, as amazing as she is and all of that, if I went into the project being like, that's Nicole Kidman, I wouldn't be able to work. Like I would be such a distraction, and I would be just geeking out the entire time and intimidated and be afraid to like work because it's Nicole Kidman. So I had to figure out how to like be like, okay, cool, she's just another artist, I'm another artist, we're just gonna work and it's gonna be great and it's gonna be fine. Which is easier said than done, but I had to figure out how to do that so that I could, you know, be professional and work in that environment with her and find something that's real and do my job, you know. But again, it's Nicole Kidman and she's one of my favorite actresses, so it was definitely something where I was like, this is the dream.
Oh my God. It reminded me of this moment I had like working on a project with Mark Ruffalo and just operating the camera handheld as he kind of moved around the scene. I was just like, this is so cool.
Oh, that's amazing.
Like just being around this kind of artist, you know?
Yeah. Mark Ruffalo is just a force. Yeah.
Mark Ruffalo is not only an incredible talent, but it's amazing how he'll just walk up to everyone, no matter if they're production assistant, doesn't matter. He'll just be like, hey, how's it going? Like, how are you?
Yeah.
He's just so real.
I love hearing that. It's so important because it's like, I've worked with a lot of actors who are like that and a lot of directors and filmmakers who are like that, and I think that's so important because one of the most beautiful things about filmmaking and making movies is like the collaborative process, you know what I mean? It's just working with one another, you know, and it's no one is kind of should be put on a pedestal, I think, in my opinion, you know. We're all just going through it together, you know, and I think that's awesome that Mark Ruffalo is. It makes total sense that he's like that, you know. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, he also fights for what he thinks is right, you know, and so do you feel that there's like, because being an actor, like you have some sort of a power that you can reach the millions of people, like on your Instagram or like billions of people on the screen, like do you think it's important to also, you know, communicate like what you think is important in the world and issues. And,
I think it's beautiful when you have individuals who have platforms to actually utilize it for something more, you know. Right. I'm young, and so I kind of have that social media thing, and it's weird to think that like I could fill a couple stadiums with the amount of people that are watching with me just posting a selfie or a photo of my dog or what I'm eating. Like it's really weird to think about, but you have so many people who have so many things to say and they want to use their voice. If you actually have people listening, that you should use it for something that is right or for something that you believe in, you know. It's a really powerful thing to have. So I try and use that in the best way possible, and I think there's so many other young people, like this next generation is like very powerful in my opinion. I feel like we're very connected, and I feel like we're really using our voice and trying to kind of change things, and I think that's really exciting.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, what is success to you? And like, I know you're not gonna say it's money, because I know that's not it. But like, what is your definition? Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a super interesting question. For me personally, it's very simple, but I think success is just overcoming known barriers. I think that's just when I can overcome barriers in a field that I love, that's success, you know. I reached it, haha, I did it, you know, like that's success to me. And there's so many other things of like, you know, being successful there and like overcoming those barriers, and then still also living a very kind of fruitful life and like artful life, and having a good group of people that I can have great conversation with and great pleasurable moments with, and you know, and kind of live life other than just my career too, and just experience life and have that and be very connected to other people, and then just to overcome all of these obstacles and barriers and do well in spite of everything else that might hit you. I think that's my definition of success, you know.
Wow.
And then the rest of it is like could be signs of it, you know, like if you're making a lot of money, that's great.
Yeah, sure.
You know what I mean?
That's good.
That's cool, but like was that your goal?
Right.
Like, you know, is there more to it? Like, are you happy? And like, I feel like I'm most happy when I'm overcoming barriers, you know.
Wow.
That's just my
it's great.
definition of it.
That's why you're so advanced.
Ah, thank you.
I love that.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I had a question that just you sparked off an idea in me based on a conversation we had earlier today with Joy Villa when she was here. She was saying that, you know, with magazines and there's so much like airbrushing of images and beauty work done these days, do you feel like even young people like within your generation, do they like, they're subjected to all these sort of like cruel things that, you know, for a young woman, like, are they like injecting themselves, or they, tell me about that.
Oh, it's so sad. I think that it's sad for me because it's like you're seeing it at a younger and younger age of like these girls, guys too, but like girls specifically, who are like really young, who are already wanting to change their bodies and like all of that. And it makes sense because, you know, there's airbrush things in magazines, and there's just like this certain perception of what's beautiful and how someone should be. And then also the fact that there's so much importance on beauty in general, on being a body, on being like, you know, sexy or hot or whatever, and these other ideals that are so, I think, important, of being kind and smart and be able to think for yourself and be funny, you know, like all of these amazing factors. They're not really promoted because they don't really sell anything, you know what I mean, like, and makeup products and things like that, they do well when, you know, and so it's sad to watch young girls at this age just trying to change themselves and like putting their attention so hard on something that's really not relevant when it comes down to it. Like when it comes down to it at the end of the day, or in 50 years, like we're all getting wrinkles at some point, like it's just gonna happen. Or like the most important things in life is just like, okay, cool, was I a kind human being? Did I experience life? Did I go out and live, like, even if I didn't look amazing, did I go out and just have a good time and meet new people? Like that's what's important, you know. And I really hope that this generation is just changes a little bit on that, you know, and you don't have to Facetune your photos on Instagram, and like you don't have to airbrush, like it doesn't really matter what size you are and all of that. Just when it comes down to it, it's really just irrelevant. Like I hope that the importance or the significance that's put on being like your body is like, I hope that significance gets stripped and people just are able to just create no matter what they look like, you know. Yeah,
I agree. I'm like you're so refreshing. I'm like, like you're speaking like really lots of truth, and for this young generation, they need to hear this from you. So I'm so happy you're like stating it. So this is awesome.
Yeah, I hope they listen. That'd be really great.
Are you guys listening? Like, yeah, we've got the young generation.
Just reminded me, like I was on when the actual, you know, the Guess campaign is sort of like an iconic campaign. You know, they pick these like supermodels to do these projects, and I was documenting Paris Hilton, and she went on this campaign, and it was like, she's a beautiful just as is, like with nothing. Yeah. But it was just like you know, his hair was extensions, eyelashes, you know, contacts, nails, like everything.
Yeah.
It's like everything, you
It's
know?
so sad.
And then girls are reading these magazines and seeing these shots, and they're like,
Yeah.
I want to look like that. But in reality,
she doesn't even look like that.
Yeah.
It's so sad. And I think also like playing with makeup and stuff like that and doing your hair is fun. It's a fun little thing, but it should be to like accentuate the features that you like yourself, not trying to like sculpt yourself into something that you're not or like hide yourself, you know? Like if you're like, oh cool, I have green eyes and I feel like this gold eyeliner would be really fun, great, go ahead. And like if that makes you feel confident, that's badass, like great, do that. But then when you have people who are like, okay, I'm gonna contour my face so it looks like my cheekbones are this, and then I can have this and then hide that, and if I do my lashes like this, I'll look exactly like Paris Hilton or Kim Kardashian or whoever they're looking up to in the magazines, right? It's just sad because it's like, but you are beautiful in your own way, you know, and like just it's better to accentuate that than what someone else looks like or is trying to look like, you know.
It's a great message, Jade. It's so interesting, you know, I feel like the purpose of By Night putting this show together as creators is really coming alive, because we've had like, you know, someone like you, and then we've had, you know, yesterday we had the founder of Atari, which was like a very iconic, you know, video game company, as well as he created Chuck E. Cheese. He just said, success is enjoying yourself, is enjoying life. And you're saying the same thing. And so I feel like our purpose for doing the show is coming alive because these sort of like basic truths of really amazing people are just becoming sort of like distilled to their simplicity.
That's beautiful.
You know?
I love that you guys are creating an outlet for people to watch and just be able to look at that from people who are doing successful in so many different fields, you know what I mean, and making things happen, and just having an outlet for people to look at that and be like, wow, okay, cool, and this is like truthful things, you know, like that's really beautiful that you guys are creating an atmosphere like that and creating a outlet for someone to look into that, you know.
Awesome.
It's very cool. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, we think
Yeah.
that, me too. Like artists and you know, creators in general are like the most important people on the planet. We create new realities. So
yeah, they do.
Yeah, that's right. So like how do you continue to be innovative and create new trails for you in your career?
I do things that scare me. That's really what I do. Is like I try and do one thing every day that scares me and that's boring too. Because there's also like the things of like, okay, I have to figure out, you know, like in music, this is a super great example. It's like, okay, cool, I'm going to do like metronome drills and do scales, and it's like really boring and annoying, but like it helps you with your craft. And then do something that's like absolutely terrifying, you know, and play in front of people and like just go busking in the subway or whatever, right? And I do that with acting as well. It's just like do projects that are pushing you out of your comfort zone. And I like researching just different stories and people in general, like whether or not it's an audition that's coming away, whether it's, you know, I could look at something and be like, oh, that's really interesting, I've never seen that portrayed in film, I'm going to write something about it, and I'll write it, you know, and just see how that goes, and then just take auditions and take projects that are different and scary and exciting, and then it kind of just forces you to kind of push your limits and experience new things, and you know, you're innovative in that sense of you're just trying new things constantly, and that's the beauty of it, is like you're not in like a 9-to-5 job or anything where it's like everything is planned out, you know. It's like, okay, cool, like something different is happening every day, you know. And that's what I love about the life that I live, is like just every day is different and every day is new. And so I try and embrace that and embrace trying new things and doing things that are terrifying.
Well, that's awesome. Well, like, you guys definitely have to check out Jade on her Instagram. She's incredible. She's creating all the time in her new movies. And then now we're going to go to the last question, which you've given so many good tips. It's like, oh my gosh. So like, what are some like 5 action steps that you can give to like young aspiring actresses?
Okay. All right. I would say the first tip, before you go into it, or as you go into it, just in general, fall in love with it, you know, be passionate about it. If you're not passionate about it, then find something else that you are passionate about. Like, that's so important, because then it makes all of the work and everything else just worth it. That's right. So I would say 1 is to fall in love with it. 2, I said this earlier, but it's super important, is just to do your research. Really look into your craft on how it works, both on the business side and creatively, and just kind of expand from there and look at different sources. And just kind of figure out what your craft is and what is happening in your industry right now. So I would say that's super important. I would say to really embrace the collaborative element of acting too. Like, when you're working with people, be very aware that you're working with other people and to kind of be grounded in that sense. And whenever you're working, be very courteous with others because it is a job, you know, and we're all working together. So that's also very important.
Very.
The fourth one, this is really just in life. I think it's so simple, but in life it's perfect, is just to commit fully. Like, don't be afraid of like how it's gonna look or anything like that. Just like go into it and don't kind of like half-ass it or anything like that. Just like go fully into it, commit, all of that. I think that's really important. And then 5, I would say, have fun. I know that sounds like super simple, but like just enjoy it and have fun. And it can get super stressful, but just remember that you're playing make-believe. Like, that's really awesome. So just kind of enjoy it and don't get super sucked into everything else that's super stressful.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Jade.
Yeah, thank you. This was
you're
a good little
welcome.
chat.
Yeah, it was so good. I'm energized. I'm pumped. Let's go create.
Let's go create.
do it.
I'm into it.
Okay, cool. Yay.
All right, guys, thank you so much. You're going to see a very, very, very exciting career just continue to develop here with Jade Pettyjohn. Thank you for being on The Dream State, Jade. We'll catch you guys on the next episode.